Welcome to Inside Out with Saz and Ali, episode 12. We talk about mindset, mental health challenges, and your belief systems. Push you to ask you more whys to help you and find the genius inside of you. Yes, I said genius because you are one. Very grateful to all of you guys who are watching this and listening to our podcast into different platforms like Anchor, Google, Spotify, uh, Apple, Breaker, etc. Please do leave a comment if you find our content any of value to you guys. And like we are constantly making an effort to bring out the stories of the people so that they can give you strength to speak up yours and spread the awareness about mental health. All right. So today we have someone who believes she's born in a wrong country because her heart lies in the cultures and values of India.
Yes.
Think of Kajol, the actress from Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, the blockbuster movie from Bollywood movie, and I always tell her that she's exactly like her. And that's what I love about today's guest. She's rooted, strong, immensely dedicated mother, and very supportive and loving partner to one and only Mark Smith, also known as 72 Mindset Investor in Canada.
Thank you, Sahas.
I'm not over yet.
You're still going.
Together, they are proud parents of four lovely children Adam, Aryan, Arman, and Naya. And I'm very, very proud to introduce you to all to Zara. Zara, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Sahas.
Zara.
Thank you, Ali. Wow, what an introduction.
Yeah,
I'm glad to
totally.
be here. Thank you for having me. And I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I'm just honored to be part of it.
Yeah, did Mark tell you to say that?
No,
Is that on a sticky note as well?
it's on a sticky note in front of me. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
That's
like I said,
awesome.
we are just
Zara,
going to have a very casual conversation, right?
yeah.
Like it's just like think about family sitting together, talking and discussing about like how my childhood was, how your childhood was, how did you raise.
hmm
So we are just going to have random questions about our thought processes and just
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
certain way that it helps somebody else who's listening to it and they get value and get strength from whatever conversations that we are going to have today.
sure.
So it's just for that is the motive of this podcast.
Absolutely.
So, Zara, we were talking earlier about your background. So let's just dive into that. You were born,
Sure.
you said, in Vancouver.
Yes, Vancouver, BC. Beautiful Vancouver.
Right. And your parents, that you said, are from Africa, South Africa,
Yes, East Africa.
in East Africa, sorry.
Both born and
Okay.
raised in East Africa. Yeah.
How was that like growing up in that culture, especially in Vancouver, because it's a different society, but your parents are East African. So it must be an interesting clash for you.
Yeah, so I was born in Vancouver. I'm turning 41 very soon, next week.
hmm
Wow. You
But
don't look like
thank you. When we first moved to Vancouver, or sorry, when I was born in Vancouver, but I grew up in Coquitlam. And at the time it was still there was still a lot of racism. And Coquitlam was very white still, if I can
hmm
say that.
yeah.
And so it was difficult. But a lot has changed. Vancouver has become multicultural now. In When we were teenagers, we moved to Burnaby, where I went from Coquitlam to an all-white school, where my brother and I were the only two brown kids, and there was one black kid, to Burnaby, where the high school was just all brown. So,
Okay.
yeah, I guess there was pockets of different cultures, um, but yeah, I mean,
That was so. In fact, this is what I wanted to ask you about. Like, how was your childhood? Like, you said that you were the only two brown kids in the block in your from your
hmm
block to going to that white school. So, how was that experience for you?
it was it was it was it wasn't too bad because we also were very involved in Kane, in our mosque. My parents were very involved, so they became leaders of the Kane in our area in Coquitlam. So we basically grew up in Kane. So all of our friends, family, like we were surrounded by our culture. So it started at a very young age, right from the get-go. my uncles, aunts, cousins, we all grew up together in Vancouver. So, any weekend, any excuse to get together, we were always together. So I had that around me. Um, the thing is, growing up in Coquitlam, I didn't know any different, right? I didn't really know any different. That's just how I grew up. That's the friends I had. So yeah, it was good. I feel like I had a balance of both worlds.
So, was there any time in your like childhood where you thought that you were like in a way that you were bullied or something like that because background, different background from the whites and all that?
So I have a twin brother, and he was bullied. I
Oh,
was not bullied nearly as much as him. Um, he was very much so bullied by the other guys, right? And I don't know if it's just a male dominance
Mm.
and I'm not sure, but he definitely got bullied a lot more than I did. Yeah, and that was hard to see because as
yeah.
his sister, I felt like there was only so much I could do to protect him and stick up for him. So he had a very difficult upbringing where we lived, so growing up.
So was he able to share it with you whenever any kind of an incident happened with him or when he was bullied? Did he share it with the parents or you or something like that?
He did. I remember I was there, so I saw it, right? I saw it
Hmm.
happening. Whether it was verbal or physical, I was there for it all. I witnessed it. So, we would talk to my parents. My parents would talk to the school, the teachers, the principal. But there's only so much that happened. We still have to go to school every day and we still have to see those
Yeah.
same people every day, right? So we kind of just had to just protect ourselves, get dropped off at school in the morning and go. And my parents were working, so we had to walk home from school. So just get home as soon as we could after school.
Well,
So yeah, early on, there was definitely that. I think that happened through elementary school, and then it changed when in grade 8 we were still in Coquitlam. In high school, we were still in Coquitlam, and then it was in grade 9 that we moved to Burnaby. So things changed
I
because we
see.
were surrounded by it was way more multicultural than growing up in
Hmm.
Coquitlam. Now, today, if you go there, all of Vancouver is multicultural right
Yeah.
now.
Now, did you, during that transition, did you find it more difficult settling down because of what you had to go through at elementary? Or was it an easy transition because now everyone's pretty much multicultural?
It was so easy. Yeah, I felt like I was home. I walked in that high school and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
everyone's brown and there's like five white people, right? So it was completely different, completely different. And
Hmm.
it was probably because where we lived on the border of Burnaby and US Minister.
Hmm.
So there was a big Indian community there. So yeah, I walk into the high school and it was easy transition, easy. Made friends right away, felt right at home. I was safe. My brother was safe. Uh, definitely worth the move. Now,
Hmm.
the reason why we originally moved was because my brother got into some trouble as we lived in Coquitlam because like
Hmm.
when you don't fit in, you're going to try and make yourself fit in however and do
Hmm.
whatever, right? At that point, my parents were like, you know what, it's time we get out of Coquitlam. It's not good for any of us growing up there, and
Yeah.
that's why we left.
No, that's amazing. And one thing about you, like when I introduced you, I told that you are a Kajol version of is what I say to you, right? Like you are Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. Where do you get those roots in you? Because obviously the thing is, by the way, everyone who's listening to this, she's never been to India. She
I
did once.
have.
Okay, you did once. I remember you said that, but you how do you feel so connected with the roots, and where do you get that kind of a culture and values inside of the way that you have uh, brought
It
up?
definitely starts with my parents, and it starts with our own culture because Ismailis, although our religion is we're Muslim, our culture is very, very Indian, right? So the way we dress, what we eat, the music, the movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it definitely came from my parents. I grew up watching Indian movies, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
understand the language. That's how I learned it. Um, we grew up with my nanima, my mom's mom. So my first
Mm-hmm.
language was Gujarati, and I speak it fluently.
Oh.
My second language was English when I went to school. Um, and again, as I mentioned, any chance my parents got to be with family on the weekends, that's who we were with. So their best friends, their friends group was our family, their brothers and sisters. So that's how we were very close, and I was very close with my cousins too growing up. Then when you're in Kane, like as part of any religion, there's the cultural part of it too, right? Where, um, you know, you go to Kane to do your prayers, of course, but then afterwards there's the socializing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's socializing, you're getting dressed up to go. There's dandiya, there's rasra, there's mendi, like there's different occasions where you get to be involved in all these different ceremonies and cultures, or that are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Celebrations. So it was always I just loved it. I'd look forward to it. Um, my brother and sister, I mean, they do, but they're probably not as crazy about it as
As,
me.
as you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I take it to a different level.
Different level. And by the way, by the way, you look lovely because you are already in Indian attire today, right? What exactly are you
Yes, I'm
wearing?
wearing Indian attire. Yes, any chance I can get.
Any chance you can get? Could you tell, like, what are you wearing today?
I'm wearing a Punjabi suit.
Wow.
So it's
Nice.
yeah, so it's a top, right? With
Mm-hmm.
pants, and then we call it a pacheri. It's also called chuni, right? Or a
Chuni.
scarf
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
um over my shoulders.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and it seems like you've influenced Mark as well a lot because now he's listening to, like Sas told me, he listens to Bollywood movies and he watches Bollywood movies, listens to the songs, and he's definitely getting that from you as well.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, I think
funny.
he felt like a part of it was lost because
Mm-hmm.
his first marriage, his wife was not as smiley.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different when you have a mixed marriage, right? So but then when we met, I'm right in there, so
Yeah.
definitely got reconnected. Let's
Reconnected.
just say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And my parents are very much very involved in the community and the culture and everything
Mm-hmm.
as well. I love the food. I've always loved the food,
Yeah.
the
What is your
music.
favorite food?
I love biryani. I've been craving
Oh,
it
Ah,
because I haven't had
yeah.
it in over a year because I haven't seen my parents in over a year because of COVID. Akni,
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many things. There's just so many things I could go on.
Yeah. I miss biryani too. It's been quite some time. Well, at
Yeah,
least where I live, it's kind of hard to get good, decent desi food.
yeah.
I do want to ask one thing about now going back to some of the last topics we were speaking regarding growing up. Did you find because of whatever happened growing up, even though things got a lot better, you still saw some of the effects in adulthood, or do you think that was just something that you could kind of grow up and not really worry about anymore?
If I think about it, um, how can it not have affected me in my adulthood even now actually? So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good point because if I stop to think about it, yeah, I'm sure it has affected me as an adult. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
probably um it probably has a lot to do with who I ended up turning out to be, right? Who I've become.
mm-hmm. Did you ever feel like I have to change myself now from whatever happened? Did you ever feel like I need to take or go on a self development journey like Mark did? Was that ever a thing for you?
No, not in the same way as Mark.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been on a journey to find my purpose.
Mm.
yeah. And also in one of our previous conversations, like we connected on, you talked about like uh, mental health issues anxiety and all that stuff. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful that, because even Mark talks about it, like he says that vulnerability is his superpower, and the way that he
Hmm.
also expresses his way, his anxiety issues, PTSD, the way that he struggles with it, and the way that he copes up with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to bring it out in the people, because not many people talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? They suffer from it, but they don't talk about it because
Yes.
feeling of getting judged, simple. And it
Yep.
is more prominent in our own countries, like, like back in India, even in Pakistan, like women are not just women, like me as a kid, when I was if I were depressed, I, first of all, even I wouldn't know that I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would know that they're in a depression kind of a
Yeah.
state. But even if you say that you need some kind of a help, it is considered that you are
Yes.
you're mental,
Yes.
right?
You're
Or
or you're
that
weak.
it's all, or that it's all in your head,
It's
right?
all in your
Yeah.
head. Or just, why don't you go for a vacation? Why don't you just have this chocolate, right? Another good thing, like, have this toy. I'm getting you the toy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not having the conversation. So did you find that maybe somewhere in the childhood, maybe in adulthood, or maybe in any time of your life experiences, that you suffered from depression or anxiety or anything, that you thought that nobody's hearing you from inside? Did you experience
Yes.
that?
Yep, I did actually. Because I had to really dig deep and think back. And I remember when we lived in Coquitlam and my brother was going through his struggles, um, I was so sad that I would just cry. I would cry for absolutely no reason. And my mom would look at me and she's like, "Why are you crying? What happened?" Right? We're just sitting here laughing and now you're crying. I have no idea, Mom. Nothing's happened. I have no idea why I'm crying. I just feel like crying.
And how old were you?
I was probably about 13, maybe
Mm.
12, 11, like around that age, 11, 12, 13.
Mhm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I was just full of sadness and I had no idea why I was crying. My parents didn't know I was crying and they kind of just brushed it off because I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of person, right? So I wouldn't sit there and self-pity and feel sorry for myself. I'd want to snap out of it because nobody wants to feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So I'd get my crying done, be done with it, and then go on. Um, but my parents said I came out crying, and I've never stopped crying because I was very colic as a baby too, right?
Yeah.
So they used to make fun of me that way too. But yeah, and we didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was normal, right? I didn't tell anybody other than, my parents saw, my brother saw, my sister saw, but that's it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. And I had no idea why it was happening. But now if I think about it, it makes sense, right?
Yeah. And did you get over the period of time, or how did you cope up with that?
I don't think I ever did. I think when things got better, I felt better. And
What?
having a twin, sorry, go ahead.
Mhm. So, my question is, like, what things got better according to you?
So
In
relationship with my brother and us
Okay.
and my
Okay.
parents. Yeah, when things started, when things would be better with them, when he was happy and everybody was good, then I was good. But once there was any chaos, fighting, any kind of
Hmm.
tension, then I would really feel it. I was very sensitive. I still am very sensitive. And being my twin brother, I really could feel. I know this is crazy. It didn't work both ways, but I could definitely feel when he was sad.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was one time, years later, that we weren't living in the same city, I don't think. Or maybe we were. But regardless, we weren't living in the same house. And I remember being really sad and calling him up, and something had happened with him, and we were talking about
Mm.
it. And I got off the phone and I was like, I think I was actually feeling his sadness.
Wow.
It was hit and miss. It wasn't
Mm.
all the time, and it definitely, definitely didn't go the other way. Yeah.
Still, that's pretty remarkable. Now, it seems like basically your anxiety or your sensitivity would pick up on the environment all the time.
Yeah.
Now, because now things are better, you're getting better. Um, did you ever feel even things were better, you still felt like shit at times? Were there any moments like those, or was it always triggered by an environment issue?
I think it was triggered by environment. I'm very sensitive to my environment. I've always
Mm-hmm.
been sensitive to my environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why I think um, it never progressed into anything more like, oh, she needs to see a doctor or she needs therapy or let's go see what's wrong with her. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it never went anywhere because it was all based around my environment. So when the environment was good, I was good. When the
Mm-hmm.
environment was bad, I took it very,
Very,
very, very strongly, very hard.
yeah. No, I remember the time when I was a kid. I mean, not really a kid, but maybe somewhere in the teenage, like when I
Hmm.
was starting my engineering and everything. It's very hard to also like for people, not just to people, like I said, like not for just to people to understand what you're going through, just for yourself also. And you are
Yes.
in a very dark state. I mean, for me, I felt like, I'm just, drowning in a well, which is there is all darkness. And you won't believe the kind of dark poems that I used to write.
Yeah, he did send me one. It was really interesting. He sent me, what is it called? Can't remember the name.
There's so many. I have a blog full of dark poems. I can send it to you guys.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, like that's the whole thing about it, because I had to just get it out of my system. Because, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing that some of them, because I nobody would understand. The thing is that like nobody is even grown up enough to actually understand what's happening, like having a real connection talk kind of a thing. Not even our parents, I'm sorry, like my parents, in fact, like they never thought that I should be having a conversation about it. So in fact, like
Yeah.
whenever I used to, like when some kind of a functional distress used to happen to me, my half side of my body used to get weak. So I literally had to be given, shock therapy, where the weak side of my body used to get, reignited and get the strength
Wow.
back and everything. And that is all because of my depression,
Yes.
all because of how what I've it was causing me. I was just hurting myself internally so much.
Yes. And I can relate to that because what happened was I had postpartum depression with both my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
with Aaron, that's exactly what happened to me. Is when he was born, that feeling of weakness I felt in both my arms, right down to my hands. It was that the numbing, tingling feeling
Yeah.
in my hands. And that's when I knew um, something's not right. And I would just stare at Aaron. And my ex husband used to say, "You look like a deer in headlights." Because I could hear him crying. I know I had to go pick him up. He's either needs a diaper change or the
Wow.
baby needs to be fed. But I was frozen in that moment and I couldn't move. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
knew that I need help.
Yeah. Could you explain like what kind of a state was it? Like you said that it's called as postpartum depression.
Postpartum
Yeah.
depression.
So what exactly it is?
So, postpartum depression happens it can develop 3 days after childbirth because there's a dramatic drop in hormones, specifically
Mm-hmm.
estrogen and progesterone. So, there's a fact, I'm just going to, I wrote it down because I wanted to share it. But a woman will produce more estrogen during one pregnancy than throughout her entire life when not pregnant.
Wow.
Wow.
And there's a dramatic drop 3 days after you give birth. So you can only
Wow.
imagine what's happening
Yeah.
in the body, right?
Yeah. It's like
And it encompasses the emotional, the behavioral, and the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy statistics are that 1 in 10 women will develop postpartum depression. And is the scariest thing in the world because you're so excited to be pregnant, to have a healthy baby that came out with 10 fingers and 10 toes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you get home, you're released from the hospital, anyways, in my experience, my personal experience. And it's not that you don't want the baby. Now there's different levels of postpartum depression. Um, I wasn't at the point where I wanted to hurt myself or my baby,
Mm-hmm.
but I was sad all the time. I was crying all the time. I was exhausted. You can only imagine after giving birth and having a newborn baby how exhausted a mother is. And I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep. It was crazy. I couldn't think. I couldn't eat. I lost my appetite. I lost tons of weight. It was just the craziest thing in the world. And then I have this baby, this brand new newborn baby who has come into this world, who I'm supposed to take care of, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't. And I can't. That's the hardest thing. I can't.
What's the thought process? Can you elaborate? Like, do you even remember like what actually goes through your mind at the time when you are going through that kind of a state?
In my lowest moments, I remember I was sitting in the bathtub,
Mm-hmm.
and my ex-husband at the time, he was standing there, and I said to him, I don't want to hurt myself. I don't want to die. I don't it's not that I don't want to be here, but I feel like you and Aaron would be better off without me.
Wow.
But I didn't want to. That's the thing. I didn't
Yeah.
want to go. I didn't want to hurt myself. I didn't want to do any of those things, but I felt like I was causing so much chaos. Like, what a burden on my husband. He had
Mm-hmm.
to Luckily he could work from home, but he had to leave his job so he could be at home with me. My parents lived here in London, Ontario at the time. My mother-in-law was in Toronto. My sister, everyone has their families of their own to take care of. So it's very difficult to have someone just drop everything and come stay with you while you're going through this, because you really cannot take care of the child by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to, and you're not comfortable. It gives you anxiety. Just the thought of it gives you anxiety. So I couldn't as much as I wanted to, and I'd push myself and I'd force myself, but it didn't matter. So he had to work from home, which thank
Mm-hmm.
goodness he could. And then we had to hire help. We had to hire help. We had to get somebody to come, so he could work, so she could take care of the baby, so I could try and rest.
Interesting. Now, how long did that last for you?
It
For both
lasted.
times it happened.
So here's the interesting thing, right? Postpartum, if you ask Google, will tell you that it's 3 days after childbirth, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the hormones drop. For me, it actually started while I was pregnant with Aaron. So I had a difficult pregnancy. Um, I had, well, it was termed pregnancy induced kidney stones.
Oh.
Yeah. So what happens is the body, because of all the hormones and changes, produces the stones, and there's no way of getting rid of them. You just pass them after the
Mm-hmm.
baby's born, or hopefully with the baby. So that was
Yeah.
extremely painful, extremely. I was bedridden on medications that, I'm scared to even say out loud, but I didn't have a choice because I was in so much pain. I was in and out of the hospital. I was scared for my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it started very early for me. And then, so which is different, right, than most cases. But I remember thinking, okay, it's just because of all this trouble I'm going through. I'll be fine. Once the baby's born, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to go away. So I didn't seek any help. I didn't talk to anybody. Just, focused on these kidney stones and, you know, the time passing so I could deliver the baby and have a baby. But it
Yeah.
didn't go away. It didn't go away. And I remember coming home, and again, when in that moment when my arms went weak, my hands went weak, that's when I realized something is wrong with me. And I can't pretend anymore. I can't hide it anymore. I need help. So I remember calling my doctor, and she spoke to me right away, and she said, well, there's a psychiatrist that I want you to go see.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her the urgency. She could hear it in my voice. I was crying. I was like, please help me. I need help. I need help. So I made an appointment. I was going to go see her. There's a psychiatrist that she said you have to call. So I called and I left a message on the psychiatrist machine, like begging for help. You need to see me. I need help. Went to go see the doctor. Of course, they have these questions that they ask you. And I think it's pretty standard practice now where they ask you after a baby's born, they ask the mother, you know, a few questions to see if there's any signs of postpartum depression. She didn't need to ask me. Like I came out
It's
and
pretty
said I
obvious.
had it,
Obvious.
right?
Yeah.
So she asked me if I wanted to get on medication, right? So here's the thing. I didn't want to. And I sort of took that into consideration, but I thought, let me see if I can do this on my own, right? Because there's stigma around medication. And not only that, I think once you admit to yourself, well, I did this to myself, but I thought once I admit to myself that I need the medication, then I definitely have a mental illness, right? So I went to go see the psychiatrist, and I go to the hospital, and I'm walking down the mental ward, right? And I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe this is me. I can't believe I'm going through this, right? I go see the psychiatrist. She talks to me. She right away suggests putting me on medication. So I'm not against medication, but I just had to get over the ego, right? If I need help, and I really needed help, like I needed help. I knew I couldn't do this alone. So if she was telling me to take medication, I was going to take medication. So I took medication and she put me in therapy right away. So I was frequently going to the hospital and having therapy sessions because that's what the psychiatrist required.
But do you think there was an alternative to not having the medication otherwise? Or that is
I
something?
I feel that the state that I was in, I really felt like I had no choice. I had to survive. It was survival at that
It was
point.
survival, you're right.
Survival, right? We didn't have any support at home. You know, again, we're living on one income because my husband's working. I'm home, newborn baby. So it was survival. It was like, get me well right away, and then I'll figure out how to wean off and other alternative therapy. So I felt like I didn't have a choice. I really didn't feel like I have a choice in that moment.
Wow.
You know, I gotta say, like, you're an extremely fucking strong woman for going all through. I can't even imagine pregnancy and kidney stones. Like, holy fuck, that sounds
Yeah.
insane.
No,
But not
seriously.
just no, like kidney stones itself is like extremely painful. I haven't
It is
experienced it,
very
but from
painful.
the shit I've heard, my
Apparently, sorry to cut you off. Men say
yeah,
it's the kidney stones for men is the equivalent to giving birth, apparently.
jeez.
So you
I
guys
mean,
can feel
it's
what
almost
it's
like it's very
I would
similar,
agree.
I would assume. But how did you like fast forward now, going through all that? How are you now, and how did you recover in that phase? Did that therapy and medication help? Were you able to move on, or do you find
Yes.
that
Yeah, just
like
before you answer that question, I just want to say one thing that whatever you just said, I think I was literally, uh, blown away by whatever you just said, because I think not,
mhm,
I wasn't even aware about this kind of situation actually women go through, and there is a possibility that women can go through this before you even told me about it.
Mhm.
And I can just only imagine, like, giving birth itself is like such a godly thing to do, and then getting into that state where you are literally begging for help because there is no other way, and you cannot even do something about the child that you just gave birth to. That itself is such a dramatic situation when you think about in your mind,
Mhm.
that
mhm.
you cannot like imagine, like, I can just think about it, like it just gave me shivers when you were just even telling me about it, that this is what you had to go through.
Yeah.
And there's
And
so many women.
there's lots of women, lots.
A lot of untold stories, a lot, and this happens fortunately a lot in our country that it's considered whatever, who cares,
Wow.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's
And but
I
you know,
mean,
I didn't admit it for the longest time. I didn't tell people. I was embarrassed, right? I was the first one
mhm,
to get married out of all my friends. I was the first one to have kids out of all my friends. How how would that be, right?
Oh,
I was
yeah.
so excited to get married. I was
Absolutely.
so excited to start a family and
Yes.
have kids, and then I have this beautiful child.
Yes.
How do I explain what's going on? How does one even understand? And the thing is, with depression, it's really hard to try and explain to someone what you're feeling and what you're going through unless they've been through it
Yeah.
themselves, right?
Mhm.
You know, you're absolutely right. Like your friends or anyone in the family, they cannot even understand. They're like, you should be happy. You just
Yes.
need to be happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
even
you have a
deserve
kid,
to
be
sad
happy.
right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have this is a celebratory moment, right? You have a
Yeah.
child you've brought into this world. You know, there's people who can't have children, right? And here you are, you're so blessed, right? To have a child.
And that doesn't help at all.
No, none of
It makes it
doesn't
worse.
It makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many other variables that people don't know. Like, for
Mhm.
example, a pregnancy. Some people have a wonderful 9 months, right? Others don't. I didn't. Some people, you know, they get the epidural on time. They have a short, beautiful pregnancy. Baby comes out healthy, starts nursing right away. That's a mother's dream. It doesn't always work out like that, right? I was trying to be superwoman because I went to prenatal classes even after all of this and didn't want the epidural because I didn't, you know, I'd heard how it could affect the baby, the epidural, which honestly, if I were to give anybody advice, get the fucking epidural. So I didn't get it. So I felt everything. And then on top of that, I tore. And then when you tear episiotomy, I had to get stitched up. And RN wouldn't latch. He came out grunting. So they had to check him. He was healthy. He was fine. But they wanted to take him to the NICU to make sure, like to observe and make sure he was okay. So I guess in the NICU, he must have been hungry. So they gave him a bottle, which I don't think that was the end all be all. But when he came back to me, he wouldn't latch. So there's that, right? There's the whole stereotype around a mother not nursing her baby, right? And I was adamant on nursing the baby because the baby, the milk is good for you. It's got all these antibodies. This is what you need to give to your child. It's the best thing for them. You feel like a horrible mother if you have to give them formula. So I fought and fought and fought to nurse this child till it got to a point, and this is all during the depression, that I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I had went to lactation therapy. I had tried all the gadgets and gizmos they give you. Nothing worked, right? And on top of that, just to put this in perspective, the baby sleeps for 2 hours, right? And we're supposed to sleep when the baby sleeps, okay? That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. So when the baby's sleeping, I'm pumping milk. And then when I'm done pumping, the baby's awake. Because in the beginning, you produce very little milk, right?
Yeah.
So you're sitting there hooked up to a machine, trying to get this milk to feed your child. It's just this vicious cycle, right? It's just this vicious cycle. So there's so many other things. There's the doctor's appointments that are constant. There's so many other things happening than just me trying to, or other women trying to get themselves better so they can be better for their kids if they have postpartum depression. There's so many other things going on. Now, there is something called postpartum blues. It's very different than postpartum depression. It's very normal. 80% of women, they have this. Again, it's because of that hormone drop, that drastic hormone drop, right? So it happens 3 to 10 days after having the baby, but it fades after a few weeks. That's very normal. Postpartum depression is a lot more powerful and it lasts longer. That's the difference. And usually treatment is doctor, therapy, medication.
And how has that been for you after all that?
So-
Did you find relief?
So there's a couple of things I want to go back to. So one, to tie it into my childhood, because we started talking about that. So when I was seeing the therapist, she asked me, did you have depression as a child? And I said, well, it wasn't diagnosed. I'm sure I was depressed. If I think back, I'm sure I was, because I had bouts of crying and I didn't know why, and I was sad, and I thought it was all revolved around what was going on and whatever. So she said, I think you did, because usually depression comes back and manifests itself in a traumatic situation. So for me, childbirth was very traumatic. So it came back tenfold. And this time I had to deal with it, right? So I probably had it throughout, but it was mild.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to just like you'd hear, forget about it, eat a chocolate, go have a vacation, whatever, right? But I didn't have a choice, and then I had to. And there's so then what happened was it didn't just go away. A year after, I was getting much better. I had got the swing of things, and then I don't know why mothers do this to themselves. A year later, I had this intense urge. I can't explain it. I had this intense urge to have another baby. Like I had to bring another child into this world
Mm-hmm.
after everything. And women do this all the time. That's why they have,
Yeah, there's a scientific term for this. I can't remember, but there's a
is.
study showing. I can't remember what it was, but it's really
There is.
interesting.
I can't remember either, but we do it to ourselves, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I got pregnant again. I had to have Adam. Adam had to come into this world. He just had to. So the postpartum depression, or the depression, I can't call this postpartum, but it came back right away when I got pregnant with Adam.
Again.
Oh, was it the same intensity, or was it at
It
least
was
a better?
exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew what to do this time. I knew I had to get on the medication right away. And the doctors had told me it's safe for the baby, so don't wait till after, do it now. So I started right away. I had a much better pregnancy with Adam. With him, I waited a little too long, so I didn't get the epidural again. And you can just imagine the anxiety set in when I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't do this again. But
Uh,
it was much better, definitely much better. So yeah, and then okay, so then it's only now. So Adam is 11 and Aaron is
mhm.
13. It's only now that I've started to wean off my medication, and I'm almost off.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But
12 years.
it-
12 years. Still, like you were continued on the same medication for at least 12 years, though.
Yeah, and the reason I did was because there was a lot of changes in life. There is a lot of changes in life, right? We moved from Vancouver to London,
Mhm.
separated.
Oh yeah.
Someone, family member passing away, or this happening or that happening, or job changes, whatever it is, right? Money, finances. So it just never felt like the right time to get off them.
Mhm.
But finally, I feel like I'm in a better place where I can.
Yeah.
What has helped me a lot is Reiki. So I really do believe in alternative medicine. I
Mhm.
wasn't, like I said, I wasn't ready at that time when I had to choose medication because it was fight or flight. But right now, I'm able to focus on myself. I'm able to take the time. The kids are a bit older. I'm able to meditate. I'm able to journal. I'm able to say my affirmations. I can take time and I
Mhm.
can go to Reiki. I can go, I can exercise. I can choose to eat better.
Right.
Now I have the time.
Mm.
I feel like I'm ready to start coming off of them.
And just to be clear, Reiki is therapy of energy.
Energy.
That's the idea, right?
Yes.
You're using your kinetic energy, I believe. That's the idea
Mhm.
to heal.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been an amazing journey. It's after all these years, it's going to be
Mhm.
really nice to just let that part of my life be gone.
Yeah. So now I mean, I'm sure there are some people that, I mean, would have gone to severe depression as well. And they sometimes feel when you're in that debt that there's no hope, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. We all feel that way. Oh, this is just going to be my life from now on. At that point, if someone came to you and like said that, what would you say to them as someone who's gone through all that, has seen the light, and now is out of the tunnel from what it looks like?
I would tell them that you're not alone.
Hmm.
You're going to feel like you're the only person in the world going through this. You're not alone. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. It does end. It's not going to always be like this. You're going to love life again. You're going to laugh and dance just like you used to.
Hmm.
You just have to make a decision in that moment what's best for you, because there is help out there. There is therapy. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of work. I kind of sped it up by taking the meds because I didn't have a
Yeah.
choice. And that's okay. I want people to know that it's okay to turn to medication when you feel like you have no other choice, because you can always get off them, right?
Hmm.
And we haven't created this to ourselves. There's a chemical imbalance in our body for women, hormonal, right? It's not our fault. We haven't done anything to deserve this.
Yeah, there should be no guilt,
There
honestly.
should be no
It's not.
guilt. There should be no guilt, right?
The reason that you have the guilt is because of the judgments all around you.
Yes. Yes, there's a lot of judgment, but um I think as you get older, you care less about those judgments. But when you're young, you take all those judgments very personally and very
Yeah.
much to heart, right? Of course. Um, so yeah, it's difficult. I can talk about it now, but
Yeah.
I couldn't talk about it before, right?
Also because of the environment around you, right? Like, who do you really talk to? Because it's very difficult to talk. There is one thing talking to a psychiatrist, but don't you think it would be really great, like, if we could actually have a heart-to-heart connection and a talk with somebody, maybe from your family, maybe from a friend who really understands these things? The reason why they don't is because there is no awareness about it. There is not many people, because they're judged every single time. Like you said, like, you should be happy just because you are giving a birth, and people don't even get to experience that kind of a happiness. So you are shunned from getting sad. You don't deserve to be sad.
Yeah.
So that
You're being
itself is
selfish, you know.
Yes,
you're
exactly.
being selfish.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And you're right, there isn't a lot of awareness because, see, when for some people they plan their pregnancies, others it just happens, but you don't know all this stuff. And I feel like in those prenatal classes, they should pay more attention to that. Or perhaps there should be some kind of a class for just ways to prepare yourself before you get pregnant, I think. Or maybe there's books out there. I don't know, but there's not enough education telling these women or information to do that would be a good thing to do, because I had no idea about any of this, right? So when you're young, you're partying, you're enjoying time with your friends, you're going out, you don't think about any of this stuff. You have no clue, you don't know. And if no one's talked about it, then you definitely don't know, right? What to
Absolutely.
expect. But and it's not even just the postpartum, it's everything.
Absolutely. I was
It's
just about
all
to
of
say
this
that.
stuff that I mentioned. I had
Yeah.
no clue.
And like you said, like, the reason why you experienced that depression is because of also there was some kind of something happened when you were a kid, and something which didn't have the outlet at
Yes,
that moment.
exactly.
That was just dormant inside of you.
Yes.
It just
Yeah.
uh,
Exploded.
that means it's always there. So, like, even when you were a kid or something, like, we need to have more conversations.
Yes.
We as a parents, we need to be having more conversations and be open about such things. Like, if anything the child is going through, uh, may that be just like emotional talk, or just have a conversation about, like, what's happening with you. How is life? Like, we just talk about grades, we talk about, what are you going to do with your life and all that stuff. But how you really are from inside, nobody talks about
Yes,
that.
that's a really good point, because growing up, it's different now. I don't think we have any excuses now. But I think growing up with our parents, a lot of them came with nothing, right? So they're working 2, 3 jobs, trying to make a living. Kids are at home cooking for themselves, doing their own homework. Okay, what grade did you get? Why didn't you get 100%? Okay, fine. What do you want to be when you grow up? Why do you want to be that? You have to be a doctor, a lawyer, accountant, what, you know what I mean? Like, the focus was different. But now I feel that it's that much more important, like second generation, third generation, whatever. Check in with your children, right? Like, we try and sit together for dinner every night. I try and make it a point in my house, because that's how I grew up in my house. We ask each other how each other's day was. Talk about, we'll bring up friends' names, or what's happening with this person or that person, or, like, it's really important to check in. You have to check in, because there's even, like, today, it's so hard to raise children today.
Oh, yeah.
With social media and what's going on out there. It's
Yeah, you don't have control of that, sadly.
yeah.
It's scary.
It is.
Maybe that is why Molly and I, we're not even planning to have kids at all.
It's
I just
I get it.
if my parents listen to this, they're going, oh, mera
They'll
beta.
lose their mind.
Now it's not all, it's not all
It,
this dark. I'm sure there's other mothers out there who've had,
Yeah.
beautiful
it's not
stories.
easy though.
It's not easy. It's
It's not easy.
definitely
Yeah.
a huge responsibility. You're bringing a child into this world and you're completely
Yeah.
and fully responsible for this thing.
Like
Like
this
forever.
person's gonna, yeah, this person is gonna grow up and impact other people's lives. You're
Yes.
that's it's, I don't know, like my parents keep pushing like marriage and kids in my life. I'm like, bruh, I gotta first take care of myself. Like, let me worry about having a kid later. You know? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, you have to take care
it's
of
such
yourself.
exactly, and it's such a social issue growing up in our country, is that getting married at a young age, have kids, and because it's what you're meant to do. I'm like, that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
If I
I
was
was
gonna
pulled
pump
into
out
that.
kids, yeah, a lot of women are in
Yeah.
our culture, sadly.
I was pulled into that, but I think I did it to myself because because of the Hindi movies. I wanted to be on the field dancing.
Yeah, dancing.
But no, seriously, I
You took
probably did it
Kajol
to
really
myself.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do from a young age was grow up, find the man of my dreams, get married, have babies. I was so old
Mhm.
school like that,
Old school,
like
yeah.
honestly. Got married at 23, which is very young. Had both my kids by 28, 29, which we waited quite a while because, like yourself, Sahas, we debated. We thought, do we really want to do this? And then one day I thought, well, what if I have regrets and I can't turn back time? Let's just do it, right?
That's it, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, but the risk factors to having postpartum depression is so personal history of depression. I'm just reading this from my notes. A history of depression with a previous pregnancy or family history of depression is a big one as well. Now, that's the thing. If people don't talk about it, you would never know. But after
Yeah.
I started talking about it, I came to know that I have aunts that have been in depression. My grandmother,
Oh.
my dad's mom had depression. So it was in my family,
Mhm.
right?
I would believe like most of the people in their families have depression some or the other way.
It's so common.
It's so
It's so
common. It's
common,
just never
but it's
addressed.
hushed up.
Like
Yeah. So if people
everybody go
talked
through
about
it.
it, then maybe we could,
Yeah.
because you don't know if it's going to get passed down to which generation and to who, right?
Mhm.
So if we talked about it openly, then maybe you'd be able to recognize the signs.
Yeah, can
And
you
it's not
imagine living in a
good.
world where you can actually plan this for your kids? Okay, so I'm diagnosed with depression. My kid has a chance. Let's talk about what we can do. Like, can
Yes.
you imagine
Yeah.
how huge of a difference that
Atmosphere.
would be down the road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so I'm so glad that the fact that you shared, because not many people even come out and they don't even know, like so many women back in India, back in Pakistan, even people out here, they don't even in Canada, even they don't know what they're going through until they talk about it.
Yes.
And I would simply say thank you so much for sharing your story about this, because I think the reason why I couldn't talk much is because I'm still in that, you know, like how difficult it would have been for you. I can just
Yeah.
imagine, because
Mm.
I know the kind of things that I or even Ali had to go through. Like when everybody, like I had a depression. I was driving. There had been time when I'm driving on the road and I'm all numb, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and I'm having the thoughts, what if the bus comes and hits me? So
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine like how, I mean, how you had to go through all of that stuff. And thank you so much for sharing the story. I think that this is a testimony that you have to speak more about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think a lot of things can be avoided, or at least you can prepare for, if we would talk about this more. I just want to say, Ali, you asked me like what was it's something like what changed or what got me out of it,
Hmm.
or something like that. You had asked, and I remember I'm a fighter, right? So I
Hmm.
really didn't want to give up, and I just when all these problems were coming, when all these challenges were coming, it almost became funny because it was like, what the fuck
Wow.
next? Like, what next? What now? Right? And
Yeah.
I remember my ex and I, we were just so angry and we're like, bring it on. Bring it on, because you get to the point where you're like, what? It can't get any worse. It can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, bring it on. We'll show you. And somehow, from somewhere, you get this strength.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, God doesn't do this to us, you know, so you can't turn around and blame. You really can't blame anyone. It's no one's fault, right?
Yeah.
But all you can do is go through the motions, pray that it's gonna, you know, that it's gonna pass.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all you can do in the moment, right?
And honestly, that's a testament that humans have extreme potential to heal and get better. You're an example of that, you know? So anyone listening, like, it does get better.
It does.
You got to take action, but it does get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How worse can it go?
Yeah. At that moment, it's like, what now? You know?
Now? I've been to, like, come on, bring it on.
Yeah.
I love that mentality.
Yeah. At that point, you're rock bottom. You just know you are, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to do it.
You can only climb up from that point.
You can only climb up. Yeah. That's exactly it. You can only climb up. Yeah. I still remember that moment. Yeah.
Wow. And you just made me experience that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's holy fucking shit. I can't even imagine.
This is one of my best experiences of the podcast. The reason why, because I could actually visualize in my mind the way that you narrated your story. And I think people who would be listening to this, I think they could actually go back and think about it. Oh, wow. Like, this is something to be really talked about. And maybe the people, like women who had gone through these kind of experiences in their lives, and you are just like speaking on their behalf right now. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for doing this. And right, like you said, and like Ali also said, and also in my, like when I introduce you, you are a fucking strong woman.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to add one more thing. Yeah. You know, if you share this with people and they don't like what they're hearing, or they're not going to support you, they're not important to you, right? That just tells you right there that you don't want them in your life, because they don't give a shit about you, right? So why are we so afraid to share? In fact, sharing would help us open our eyes to who's really there for us, right?
Exactly.
Is one thing. And the second thing is, you know, I'm at fault too, because I stopped myself from sharing. But had I shared, maybe things would have been easier for me too, right? Because I was holding back telling my parents. I was holding back telling my best friends. They would see this mood shift. They'd see me depressed and not depressed, but they'd see me like, you know, not answer their calls, not come out, not be myself. And they didn't know what's going on, right? So they're like, oh, okay, well, that's just Zahara being crazy again, right? When I'm, you know, when you're depressed, you don't want to see anyone. You don't want to talk to anyone. You don't want to dress up. You want to go out, right? You kind of like, you want to be in your little, in your shell. Exactly. And, but people around you don't understand that. And that's not their fault. It's because I didn't share it with them. So when I think back, I think a lot of my friendships, relationships, I think because I was not able to share what was happening, were affected. Right? So there's a lot of good comes out of sharing too.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's just like, you know, bringing an awareness, like just talking about it.
Yeah.
So that's what I even think about it. Like, the reason why even I could recover from whatever that I went through is because to be honest, like, I didn't really care if somebody who was listening to me did understand or not, but I just shared. I just wanted to get it out of my system. And that helped.
It does help. It's therapy in itself, right?
Yeah, because I'm not looking for answers. The thing is that I'm not looking for somebody to actually give me answers. But sometimes what happens is that just getting it out of your system gets the tunnel cleared for you, that there is a light. Or maybe, okay, I've just got it out. Now, maybe something else happens, then that's a separate issue. But at least that issue is out of my system.
Yes.
So that needs to be done.
Thank you, Sahas and Ali, for having me. I was hesitant, but it feels really good. It feels good to share. And
No,
I hope I've helped people out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zara,
Thank
thank
you
you so
guys.
much. And
Thank you.
you know we're on social media, right? If I'm so, there is no way that people can connect you on social media. They can connect you through Mark, I would say that,
Or email.
or email. Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It's gonna have to change. You know, Mark keeps telling me all the time, like seriously, if you use it correctly, then yeah, I feel like everything I've been through in life, I just don't have that extra time to
Yeah.
spend on social media because I know it gets involved, it can suck you in, and so I just don't go there, right? I have my phone, my
Hmm.
email, my family. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, if people want to reach out, email, phone number.
Okay.
I'm old
Hmm.
school. Call me.
No, would you
Send a
mind
pigeon
sharing your
carrier.
email at least?
Yeah. Sorry?
Would you mind sharing your email?
Yes. So it's my first name and it's spelled Zahara with the letter C for Charlie. So Zara C at
Mhm.
gmail.com.
Okay. Okay. We'll
Yeah.
definitely put it on the show notes as well.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Zara. I think you bring a lot of value on this podcast today, and really, really
Yeah.
appreciate your time. And didn't even realize that we are over 1 hour now.
Thank you. I know. I know. You probably felt like it was a slow
No.
start, but we kind of got into
Yeah,
it, right?
because that's what it is. Like, I didn't even realize. And it's
Yeah.
so glad that, I mean, you could actually you went with the flow with all whatever that you had to share. And I totally loved it. Thank you so much again
Good.
once
Thank
Thanks,
you
again for
Sarah.
doing
guys.
this. Okay.
Thank you.